My son Lucas called to uninvite me from his beach wedding because his fiancée, Brittany Hale Parker, doesn't feel comfortable with me there. I hung up the phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and started planning the most viral wedding video of the year. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me back up and tell you how I, Elaine Parker, 2-year-old retired high school principal, became the most talked about mother-in-law on social media in 3 days flat. It started Tuesday morning when my phone rang. "Mom, we need to talk," Lucas said, using that tone he'd perfected since childhood when he was about to disappoint me. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "Brittany and I have been discussing the wedding, and, well, she's really stressed about everything being perfect. You know how brides get." I knew where this was heading, but I let him dig his own grave. "And the thing is, she doesn't feel comfortable with you there. She thinks your presence might make things awkward. 27 years I raised this boy alone after his father decided fatherhood wasn't his calling. I worked double shifts to pay for his college, his car, his apartment deposit. I bit my tongue through 2 years of Brittany's passive-aggressive comments about my outdated opinions and old-fashioned cooking. "I see," I said calmly, though my hand tightened around the phone. "And you agree with this decision, Mom? Please don't make this harder than it is. It's just one day. We'll have a nice dinner after they get back from their honeymoon." "Of course," I replied. "I understand completely." The relief in his voice was audible. "Really?" "Thanks, Mom. I knew you'd be reasonable about this." After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at the wedding invitation on my refrigerator. The elegant script announced that Brittany Hale and Lucas would be exchanging vows at Seabreeze Dunes Resort this Saturday. The same invitation I'd helped Lucas address because Brittany claimed her carpal tunnel was acting up. I removed the invitation, tore it in half, and threw it in the trash. Then I opened my laptop and started researching. See, here's what my dear future daughter-in-law didn't know about me. I might be 62, but I've been on social media longer than she has. I taught high school for 30 years, which means I've dealt with entitled teenagers and their drama for decades. Brittany Hale Parker was about to learn that this old dog knew a few tricks she'd never seen. But first, I needed to make a phone call. I called my sister, Nora Parker Hughes, at 8 a.m. sharp the next morning. Nora's always been the wild one in the family, the one who never met a scheme she didn't like. "Maggie, what's wrong? You never call this early unless someone's dead." "Not dead, just disowned. Lucas uninvited me from his wedding." "He did what? That little weasel, after everything you've done for him?" I told her the whole story while she made appropriately outraged noises. Nora's 2 years younger than me, but acts 20 years younger, which made her perfect for what I had in mind. "So, what's the plan?" she asked when I finished. "Because I know you've got one. You've got that calculating voice you used when the Patterson kid tried to cheat on his SATs. I need you to do some reconnaissance for me. Brittany Hale, age 28, works at Sterling and Rowe Marketing downtown. I need to know everything about her daily routine. Elaine Elizabeth Parker, what are you planning?" "Nothing illegal, just information gathering." There was a pause. This is about more than the wedding, isn't it? She was right. For 2 years, I'd watched Brittany systematically isolate Lucas from his family and friends. She'd convinced him that I was too critical and his college buddies were immature. Every holiday became a negotiation where Brittany's comfort came first. Every family dinner included subtle digs about my cooking, my house, my life choices. I'd stayed quiet because I didn't want to lose my son. Apparently, I lost him anyway. "Nora, what would you say if I told you I had a video that might interest the wedding guests?" I'd say, "Tell me more." Saturday morning, I was having coffee at Harbor and Bean Cafe downtown. You know, the one with the outdoor seating. I was minding my own business when I saw Brittany meet someone. A tall man with dark hair. Not Lucas. "Oh, Nora, please tell me you didn't." I didn't plan it. But when I saw her practically climbing into this stranger's lap in broad daylight 2 days before her wedding, well, I thought someone should document it. The truth was, I'd been following Brittany for 3 days. Something about her smug confidence when she'd answered Lucas's phone the night he called to uninvite me had rubbed me the wrong way. Brittany was too sure of herself, too certain she'd won. I'd learned a long time ago that people who are hiding something usually reveal it when they think no one's watching. You got it on video. 47 minutes of Brittany Hale being very, very friendly with someone who definitely isn't my son. Nora laughed, a sound that reminded me why we'd been troubled together as teenagers. What do you need me to do? Meet me at the Brookstone Galleria tomorrow. We're going shopping for the perfect wedding gift. Thursday morning, Nora and I met at Brookstone Galleria like two suburban housewives planning a garden party instead of what could generously be called strategic revenge. So, what's our cover story? Nora asked as we walked past the fountain where teenagers were taking selfies. We're not spying. We're shopping for wedding gifts. Very thoughtful, personalized wedding gifts. We'd driven past Sterling and Rowe Marketing that morning, confirming Brittany's schedule. She left for lunch at exactly 12:15 p.m. and returned at 1:30 p.m. every day. According to the receptionist, Nora had charmed with a story about wanting to surprise Brittany with flowers. The man from the cafe video was Colin Mercer, which I'd learned from doing what any reasonable person would do. I followed them. Colin owned a fitness studio 3 blocks from Brittany's office, the Northline Performance Studio. Married, according to his Instagram. 2 kids, wife named Allison Mercer, who posted inspirational quotes and family photos daily. This is getting complicated, Nora said as we settled into a coffee shop across from the gym. It's about to get simple. Look, Brittany emerged from the gym at 2:45 p.m., wearing workout clothes that cost more than my monthly electric bill. Her hair was perfectly styled, despite allegedly just finishing a workout. She checked her phone, looked around carefully, then walked to a black SUV parked in the alley. Colin appeared 5 minutes later, casual as anything, and got into the passenger seat. They're not even trying to be discreet, Nora muttered. I raised my phone and started recording again. Why should they? Who's going to tell? Brittany's convinced everyone that I'm a bitter old woman who resents her happiness. Lucas would never believe anything negative about his precious fiancée. The SUV pulled out of the alley and drove toward the residential district. I'd already mapped this route yesterday. They went to a small apartment complex on Willow Court, Unit 3B, where Colin apparently kept a second residence that his wife didn't know about. We're following them. We're taking a scenic drive. If we happen to see something interesting, well, that's just lucky timing. 20 minutes later, we sat in my car watching Brittany and Colin disappear into the apartment building. I made a note of the time, and 3:17 p.m. They'd been doing this for weeks, according to my observations. Every Tuesday and Thursday like clockwork. Maggie, what are you going to do with all this? I looked at my sister, remembering how she'd held my hand through Lucas's father leaving, through every school play and baseball game when I'd been the only parent cheering. Nora had been there for every milestone, every crisis, every moment that mattered. Now, my son was marrying someone who thought I wasn't worth including in his wedding. I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve. A wedding video they'll never forget. Friday evening, I sat in my home office editing video footage like a filmmaker preparing for the Oscars. Technology might change, but the skills I'd learned making year-end presentations for the school board transferred beautifully to creating what I was now calling my wedding gift. The doorbell rang at 7 p.m. Lucas stood on my porch, holding a bottle of wine and wearing a guilty expression. Mom, can we talk? I let him in, noting how he avoided eye contact and headed straight for the kitchen where we'd had every serious conversation of his life. I brought your favorite wine, he said, setting the bottle on the counter. Bribery wine. This must be serious. He had the grace to look embarrassed. I know yesterday was hard. Brittany feels terrible about how everything came out. I'm sure she does. The thing is, her family's very formal. They have these traditions about wedding parties and guest lists. Her grandmother's really old-fashioned about these things. Each lie came easier than the last. I'd met Brittany's grandmother exactly once, a delightful woman who'd told me she was thrilled Brittany had found someone with such a wonderful mother. Apparently, that conversation had never made it back to Brittany. "Lucas, sit down." He perched on the bar stool like a guilty teenager. "Mom, please don't make this about you. It's their day." "You're right, it is their day, and I want it to be perfect for them." Relief flooded his face. "Really? You're not mad?" I reached across the counter and squeezed his hand, the same hand I'd held through countless doctor visits and school events, and heartbreaks. "Sweetheart, I just want you to be happy. That's all I've ever wanted. I love you, Mom. You know that, right?" "I know." After he left, I went back to my computer. The video was almost finished. 3 files total: the cafe meeting, the gym rendezvous, and yesterday's apartment visit. Clear footage, perfect audio, timestamps visible, everything a good documentary should have. I'd also spent the afternoon creating social media accounts. Not for me, of course. I was just a heartbroken mother who'd been excluded from her son's wedding. But my friend Grace Whitfield, whose profile I'd crafted carefully with stock photos and a believable backstory, had quite a following already. Grace was a wedding photographer who believed in truth and transparency. She posted inspiring quotes about love and honesty. She had strong opinions about fidelity and respect in marriage. People loved her content. Tomorrow, Grace would attend a beach wedding as a guest and happened to capture some very interesting footage. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "Thanks for understanding. Mom, you're the best. See you when we get back." I typed back, "Have a wonderful wedding, sweetheart. You deserve everything that's coming to you." True words, every one of them. Saturday morning dawned perfect for a beach wedding. Sunny, 78 degrees, gentle breeze. I dressed carefully in a navy blue sundress and comfortable sandals, grabbed my professional-grade camera, and drove to Seabreeze Dunes Resort. The parking lot was filling with wedding guests. I recognized several people from Lucas's college years and Brittany's work friends. They all looked happy and excited, checking their phones and fixing their makeup before the ceremony. I parked 3 rows back and watched the setup. The ceremony would take place on the beach at 4 p.m. Reception in the resort ballroom afterward. I'd helped Lucas plan enough of this wedding to know every detail back when I was still invited. At 2 p.m., I walked into the resort lobby like I belonged there. Nobody questioned a well-dressed woman with a camera. Wedding photographers were everywhere at beach resorts. "Excuse me," I asked the concierge, "could you direct me to the Hale Parker Wedding Preparation Suite?" Of course, the bridal party is in the Sunset Suite on the 3rd floor. Just follow the signs. I took the elevator up and found the hallway bustling with activity. Bridesmaids in coral dresses hurried between rooms carrying flowers and makeup bags. The groomsmen were in the Sunrise Suite across the hall, and I could hear Lucas's voice through the door. For a moment, I almost wavered. He sounded so happy, so excited. This was my son's wedding day, regardless of everything else. Then Brittany's voice carried from the bridal suite. "God, I'm so glad we didn't invite his mother. Can you imagine? She would have found some way to make this about her. I mean, the woman still dresses like it's 1,995. Her bridesmaids laughed, and I heard one of them say, "At least you won't have to deal with her very often after this." Living in different states will help. Different states? They were moving. I moved closer to the door, pretending to adjust my camera settings. "Lucas doesn't know yet," Brittany continued. "I'm going to tell him after the honeymoon." I got offered a position in San Diego, California, and honestly, it's the perfect excuse to get away from all his baggage. His friends are immature, and his mother is just clingy and pathetic. Another voice. "What if he doesn't want to move?" Brittany's laugh was cold. "He'll do whatever I tell him to do. He always has. The man is completely whipped." I'd heard enough. More than enough. I walked back to the elevator, rode down to the lobby, and went outside to wait. The wedding would start in 2 hours. Colin Mercer would be attending as Brittany's friend from work, according to the guest list I'd helped compile months ago. This was going to be very interesting. At 3:45 p.m., I took my position on the Pelican Walk access, close enough to film everything, but far enough to avoid recognition. The wedding party assembled as the guests took their seats. Lucas looked handsome in his white linen suit. Brittany was stunning in her designer gown. The officiant began the ceremony with words about love, commitment, and honesty. I started recording. The ceremony was beautiful. I'll give them that. Lucas's eyes filled with tears when Brittany walked down the aisle. The vows were traditional but heartfelt. Even I got a little emotional watching my son promise to love and honor someone who, in about 48 hours, would be the most hated bride on the internet. After the "you may kiss the bride" moment, the guests moved to the reception. I followed at a distance, filming everything. The cocktail hour, the dinner, the speeches that praised Brittany's sweetness, and Lucas's luck in finding such a wonderful woman. Then came the dancing. Brittany and Lucas had their first dance to "Can't Help Falling in Love." So romantic, so perfect, so completely ironic given what I knew about the bride's extracurricular activities. At 9:30 p.m., I noticed Colin Mercer approaching Brittany during a slow song. They spoke briefly, and I caught her glancing around nervously before following him toward the beach exit. I slipped out a side door and positioned myself behind a sand dune with my camera. The audio wasn't as clear outside, but the visual was crystal clear. Brittany and Colin walked to a secluded spot about 50 yards from the reception. Even with the distance, the body language was unmistakable. This wasn't a casual conversation between work friends. He kissed her. She kissed him back for 3 full minutes, while her new husband danced with his best man's wife inside, completely oblivious. I filmed every second of it. When they separated, I heard Brittany say, "2 more hours and we can leave." I told Lucas I have a headache coming on. "My room's ready," Colin replied. "Allison thinks I'm in Miami on business until Sunday." Perfect. One last celebration before the honeymoon. They walked back separately. Brittany first, then Colin 5 minutes later. I waited until they were inside before moving to the parking lot to upload everything to my laptop. 3 hours later, I was home with a USB drive containing 2 hours of Brittany's wedding day footage, plus the earlier videos from the cafe, gym, and apartment. I'd also captured several audio clips that would provide perfect context. I made myself a cup of tea and opened my laptop. Grace Whitfield had been busy all week building anticipation for her special wedding project that would expose the truth about modern marriage. Her follower count had grown to 50,000 people who were eagerly waiting for her next post. I looked at the clock, 2:17 a.m. In 5 hours, Lucas and Brittany would be flying to Maui for their honeymoon. By the time they landed, Wedding Day Truth, "When Love Isn't Enough," would be trending on every social media platform. I scheduled the post for 7 a.m. and went to bed. 3 days after being told I wasn't welcome at my son's wedding, I was about to give him the most memorable wedding gift of his life: the truth. By 9 a.m. Sunday morning, Wedding Day Truth, "When Love Isn't Enough" had 2.3 million views and climbing. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since 7:30, but I was ignoring it while I made pancakes and watched the comment count explode. The video was masterfully edited, if I do say so myself. It started with beautiful wedding footage. Lucas and Brittany looking radiant, exchanging vows, dancing their first dance. Then the screen split. On one side, Brittany slow dancing with her new husband. On the other side, security camera footage from the cafe showing her with Colin 3 days earlier. The audio was devastating. Brittany's voice from the bridal suite, "God, I'm so glad we didn't invite his mother." The woman is just clingy and pathetic. Then cut to her wedding vows. "I promise to honor you above all others." The finale was pure cinematic gold. Brittany and Colin kissing on the beach while "Can't Help Falling in Love" played softly in the background, then cut to Lucas inside, completely oblivious, laughing with his groomsmen. Grace Whitfield had captioned it perfectly. "This groom deserves so much better." When you exclude family from your wedding, sometimes the truth finds another way to be heard. Number wedding truth. Number justice. Number modern marriage. My phone rang for the 15th time. Lucas's number. I let it go to voicemail again. At 9:47 a.m., someone knocked on my door. Through the window, I saw Nora holding a bag from my favorite bakery and grinning like the Cheshire Cat. "You magnificent, vindictive genius," she said, pushing past me into the kitchen. "Have you seen the news?" "What news?" She turned on my TV and flipped to the local morning show. There was Brittany's wedding photo on screen with the headline, "Viral Wedding Video Exposes Cheating Bride," the anchor was saying. The identity of the videographer remains unknown, but the footage has sparked a national conversation about honesty in marriage and the treatment of extended family in modern weddings. "They're calling you a mystery wedding photographer," Nora laughed. "Cityline 12 News wants to interview Grace Whitfield, but can't find her." Imagine that. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We know it was you. Delete the video or there will be consequences." I showed Nora the text. "Looks like Brittany's not enjoying her honeymoon." "What are you going to do?" "Nothing. I'm a grieving mother who was excluded from her son's wedding. What would I know about viral videos?" The doorbell rang again. This time it was Allison Mercer, Colin's wife. I recognized her from her Instagram photos, but she looked nothing like the smiling woman who posted motivational quotes. Her eyes were red, her hands shaking. "Mrs. Parker, I'm Allison Mercer. I think we need to talk." I invited her in, offered coffee, and waited for her to speak. "My husband's in that video," she said quietly. "I've suspected something for months, but seeing it like that, with the timestamps," she broke down completely. "I'm so sorry," I said and meant it. "I never intended for innocent people to get hurt." "You did the right thing," she said through her tears. "My children deserve better than a father who lies. Your son deserves better than a wife who cheats." "How long has this been going on?" "At least 3 months, that I know of." Allison nodded, wiping her eyes. "The apartment on Willow Court. I found the lease agreement in his desk. It's been 6 months." 6 months. Brittany had been planning this wedding, accepting gifts, letting people spend thousands of dollars on travel and accommodations, all while maintaining a second relationship. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I already filed for divorce. My lawyer says the video is admissible evidence. Colin's going to lose everything." She looked at me directly. "Thank you for giving me the truth. It couldn't have been easy knowing it would hurt your son, too." After she left, I sat in my living room, staring at my phone. 7 missed calls from Lucas, 12 from Brittany, 6 from numbers I didn't recognize. The video had 4.1 million views now. My phone rang again. This time, I answered. "Mom," Lucas's voice was broken. "We need to talk." Lucas arrived at my house Monday evening, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 2 days. His honeymoon tan couldn't hide the exhaustion in his eyes or the defeat in his shoulders. "The whole resort knew," he said, slumping into my kitchen chair. People were staring, whispering. Someone recognized Brittany from the video and asked for her autograph. Can you believe that? They wanted her autograph. I poured him coffee and waited. Sometimes the best thing a mother can do is just listen. "Brittany's convinced you hired a private investigator. She thinks this was all planned, that you've been stalking her for months. And what do you think?" He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I think my mother wouldn't do something this cruel just because her feelings were hurt." The accusation stung, but I kept my expression neutral. "Lucas, do you think the video is fake?" "No. God, no. That's the worst part. It's all real, isn't it? Every single second." I reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." "Are you? Are you really sorry, Mom? Because part of me thinks you're enjoying this." His words hit harder than I expected. Was I enjoying it? Watching Brittany's perfect image crumble? Seeing her lose control of the narrative she'd so carefully constructed? Maybe I was enjoying it a little. "I'm sorry you're hurt," I said carefully. "I'm sorry you married someone who doesn't respect you. I'm not sorry the truth came out." She says it didn't mean anything. Colin was just helping her work through cold feet. The physical stuff was just stress relief. "Lucas, I know how it sounds, but people make mistakes. Marriage is about forgiveness, right? I stared at my son, this grown man who still wanted to believe in fairy tales. Sweetheart, she's been having an affair for 6 months. She kept an apartment. She planned to tell you about moving to San Diego, California after the honeymoon without discussing it with you first. This wasn't cold feet or stress relief. How do you know about San Diego? I told him about overhearing the conversation in the bridal suite. His face crumpled as each detail sank in. She had it all planned out, he whispered. The move, cutting ties with everyone here. With you? Yes. The job offer in San Diego, California is real. She accepted it 2 weeks ago. She was going to present it as a surprise opportunity we couldn't pass up. We sat in silence for several minutes. Outside, the streetlights were coming on and I could hear the neighbor's dog barking at something in their yard. Mom, I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest. Okay, did you make that video? I looked at my son. Really looked at him. The little boy who used to come running to me with scraped knees and hurt feelings. The teenager who trusted me to help him navigate his first heartbreak. The young man who'd called me every Sunday until Brittany decided those calls were too much. No, I said. I didn't make that video. It was technically true. Grace Whitfield made the video. Relief flooded his face. I knew it. I told Brittany, you weren't capable of something like that. Lucas, what are you going to do? I don't know. She wants to work on things. She says if we move to San Diego, we can start fresh, away from all this drama. And what do you want? He was quiet for a long time. I want to trust my wife, but every time I look at her, I see that video. Her laughing about you, kissing him, planning to control my life without even asking what I wanted. Then you have your answer. Do I? Because I feel like I'm losing everything at once. My marriage, my trust, maybe my relationship with you too. If you really did this, you're not losing me, sweetheart. You never could. He hugged me before he left, holding on longer than he had in years. I love you, Mom. Whatever happens next, I need you to know that. After he drove away, I opened my laptop. The video had 8.2 million views. Grace Whitfield had gained 200,000 followers, and Brittany had been tagged in approximately 50,000 comments, none of them supportive. Sometimes the truth is cruel, but it's still the truth. Wednesday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Brittany stood on my doorstep wearing oversized sunglasses and a baseball cap, looking nothing like the confident woman who'd excluded me from her wedding 4 days ago. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into my house without invitation. Come in, I said to her retreating figure. She paced my living room like a caged animal. You've destroyed my life. My job wants me to take a leave of absence. My family won't speak to me. Colin's wife is taking everything in their divorce and naming me as correspondent. I'm sorry you're going through this. She whirled around. Are you? Because I think you planned every second of this. I think you hired someone to follow me and Colin. I think you orchestrated this whole thing because your feelings got hurt. I sat down on my couch and gestured for her to do the same. She remained standing, vibrating with anger and desperation. Brittany, let me ask you something. If roles were reversed, if Lucas had been having an affair and I had proof, would you want me to tell you? That's not the same thing, isn't it? You made choices. Those choices had consequences. The video didn't create your affair or your lies. It just revealed them. You don't understand. Colin and I, it's complicated. Lucas is sweet, but he's not challenging. He doesn't push me to be better. Colin does. So, you married the wrong man. I married a good man. That should be enough. I studied Brittany's face, seeing something I hadn't noticed before. Under the anger and desperation was genuine confusion. She really believed she could have both lives, the security of marriage to Lucas and the excitement of an affair with Colin. Brittany, did you love Lucas when you married him? Of course I did. I do. Then why exclude his mother from your wedding? She sat down finally, her composure cracking. Because you see too much. You ask questions. You make me feel like I'm not good enough for him. Are you? The question hung in the air between us. Brittany's carefully constructed facade was crumbling in real time. I don't know, she whispered. I thought I was. But being with Colin made me feel alive in a way Lucas never did. And I thought I could have both. That nobody would get hurt if I was careful. Somebody always gets hurt, Brittany. The only question is who and when. I never meant for it to go this far. The affair was supposed to end after the wedding. Colin was supposed to be my last bit of freedom before settling into married life. But it didn't end. No, it got stronger. And then there was the job offer in San Diego, California. And it seemed like a sign. A way to start over. Maybe even find a way to be with Colin eventually. I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy for this young woman who'd made such destructive choices. Brittany, you need to be honest with Lucas about all of it. He'll leave me. He might. But if you keep lying, you'll definitely lose him. And you'll lose yourself, too. She stared out my window for several minutes. The video. Can you get it taken down? I can't. And even if I could, screenshots exist. It's out there now. So, I'm ruined. My career, my marriage, my reputation, all because I made some bad choices. You're 28 years old. You're not ruined unless you choose to be, but you need to stop blaming everyone else and start taking responsibility. Brittany left without another word. Through my window, I watched her sit in her car for 10 minutes before driving away. That evening, Lucas called. Brittany told me about her conversation with you, about San Diego, about Colin, about everything. How are you doing? I'm filing for annulment. Turns out, when your wife has been planning to relocate your entire life without telling you, it counts as fraud. Relief flooded through me. I'm proud of you, Mom. I need to apologize for everything. For letting Brittany treat you badly, for excluding you from the wedding, for doubting you when the video came out. You don't need to apologize for loving someone, but I do need to apologize for choosing her over you. You've never been anything but supportive, and I let her convince me you were the problem, Lucas. What matters is that you see clearly now. I do. And I see that I have the strongest, smartest mother in the world. Someone who taught me that actions have consequences even when I forgot that lesson. What will you do now? I'm moving back home for a while. If that's okay, I need to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be who someone else wants me to be. Your room is exactly as you left it. 3 weeks after the wedding that broke the internet, I was grocery shopping when a young woman approached me in the produce section. Excuse me, are you Elaine Parker? My heart stopped. Had someone figured out the connection between me and the viral video? Yes, I am. I'm Maya Ortiz from Cityline 12 News. I've been investigating the wedding video story, and I'd like to ask you a few questions. This was it. The moment I'd been dreading. I'm not sure how I can help you. Well, you're Lucas Williams's mother, correct? The groom in the video. Yes. And you weren't invited to your son's wedding? That's correct. Maya pulled out her phone and started recording. How did that make you feel? I looked at this young reporter, probably Brittany's age, eager for her big break. It made me feel sad. Every mother wants to be part of her son's wedding day. Did you know about your daughter-in-law's affair? I had no knowledge of Brittany's personal relationships beyond what I observed as Lucas's mother. Some people online are speculating that you might have been involved in creating or distributing the wedding video. Any comment on that? This was the moment of truth. I could lie, deny everything, and probably get away with it. Or I could own what I'd done and face the consequences. Maya, let me tell you something about being a mother. When your child is being hurt, your first instinct is to protect them. Sometimes that means stepping back and letting them learn from their mistakes. Sometimes it means intervening. So, you're saying you did create the video? I'm saying that sometimes the truth needs help finding its way to the surface. Maya's eyes widened. She'd gotten more than she bargained for. Mrs. Parker, are you admitting on camera that you created the viral wedding video? I thought about Lucas' home in his childhood bedroom. slowly rebuilding his confidence and sense of self. I thought about Allison Mercer, finally free from a lying husband. I thought about all the comments on the video from people thanking Grace Whitfield for exposing the truth. I'm admitting that I love my son enough to make sure he knows the truth about the person he married. Even if it meant risking your relationship with him, even though it humiliated your daughter-in-law publicly, Brittany humiliated herself. I just documented it. The interview aired that evening. By the next morning, I was getting calls from talk shows, podcasts, and documentary filmmakers. Just as Grandma was trending on Twitter, opinion pieces were being written about maternal intuition, wedding ethics, and the price of truth. Some people called me a hero. Others called me vindictive and cruel. I was simultaneously celebrated and condemned, sometimes by the same people. But Lucas supported me completely. "You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life," he told reporters who showed up at our house. "My mother saw what I was too blinded by love to see." Brittany, meanwhile, had moved to San Diego, California, to take the job she'd planned all along. Colin was living in a studio apartment and working at a different gym after his wife took everything in the divorce. The video had over 50 million views now. Grace Whitfield had become an internet legend, even though everyone knew she was really me. And I felt something I hadn't expected: peace. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't walking on eggshells around my son's girlfriend. I wasn't pretending to like someone who treated me with contempt. I wasn't enabling a relationship built on lies and manipulation. The truth had set us all free, even if freedom came at a cost. 6 months later, Lucas was doing better than I'd seen him in years. He'd started therapy, reconnected with old friends Brittany had systematically alienated, and begun dating a lovely woman named Emma, who actually seemed to enjoy my company. The viral video had become a case study in digital ethics classes and a cautionary tale about social media's power. I'd been interviewed by news programs, podcasts, and even a documentary crew. The story had been optioned for a Netflix movie, though I doubted they'd capture the complex emotions behind what looked like simple revenge. But the real vindication came when Brittany called me on a Tuesday evening in October. "Mrs. Parker, it's Brittany." "Brittany Hale." "Hello, Brittany. How are you?" "I'm different. Better, I think. I wanted to call and thank you. That wasn't what I'd expected. Thank me. The video destroyed my life, but it also saved it. Does that make sense? Tell me." I've been in therapy since I moved to San Diego, California. Real therapy, not just the couples counseling Lucas and I tried. And I've realized that I was living someone else's version of what my life should look like. The perfect wedding, the successful husband, the suburban house. None of it was actually what I wanted. I sat down, phone pressed to my ear. "What do you want?" "I want to be someone who tells the truth, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I want to be someone who doesn't need to sneak around or lie or manipulate people to feel alive. And are you becoming that person?" "I'm trying." I ended things with Colin permanently. I told my parents about the affair and the divorce. I'm dating someone new and he knows everything about my past. No secrets. I'm glad you're finding your way. "Mrs. Parker, I need to apologize. Not just for the affair, but for how I treated you. You were never the problem. I was just threatened by how clearly you saw me. Brittany, we all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them. I've learned that you can't build a life on lies, no matter how pretty those lies look from the outside. And I've learned that mothers who ask hard questions are usually worth listening to." After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about the strange journey that had brought us all to this point. An excluded mother, a viral video, a marriage destroyed, lives changed forever. Had I done the right thing? The question had kept me awake for months. Lucas was happier and more confident than he'd been in years. Brittany was learning to live authentically. Allison Mercer had remarried and looked genuinely content in her social media posts. Even Colin, according to mutual friends, was working on himself and trying to rebuild his relationship with his children. Sometimes the truth burns everything down, but sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen for new growth to begin. The video still played occasionally on social media, usually accompanied by debates about privacy, family loyalty, and the price of justice, but I'd stopped reading the comments. I knew what I'd done and why I'd done it. I'd protected my son the only way I knew how. And in the end, isn't that what mothers are supposed to do? My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "Dinner Sunday. Emma wants to learn how to make your famous lasagna." I typed back, "Perfect. I'll teach her all my secrets. Some secrets are worth sharing. Others are worth exposing. The trick is knowing the difference. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and very careful, the truth sets everyone free." Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.